At my birthday dinner, me wife's mother whispered to my wife, "While everyone's here, go and change the locks to his apartment." My wife nodded and left for an hour. She came back paler than the tablecloth and whispered, "Mom, there. Birthdays are supposed to be about cake, laughter, and pretending you're not getting older." Mine? It turned into a covert operation planned by my mother-in-law, Margaret, who treats manipulation like an Olympic sport. I'm talking gold medal level scheming, the kind that probably comes with its own national anthem. I'd booked the restaurant myself, a nice Italian spot downtown. Dim lights, jazz music, waiters who pronounce bruschetta like they're auditioning for a movie. I even wore a shirt that screamed, "I'm trying," which, for me, meant it had buttons and no visible stains. I should have known something was off the second Margaret showed up with that grin she reserves for funerals and family gatherings she plans to ruin. My wife, Clara, sat beside me, smiling that tight smile she saves for Instagram photos and family arguments, the one that says, "I'm happy, but only legally." Everything looked fine on the surface. We had wine, people laughed, my friend Jared cracked a joke about my age, and the waiter was midway through singing some unholy version of Happy Birthday when Margaret leaned toward Clara and whispered, loud enough for the waiter, God, and probably the chef to hear, "While everyone's here, go change the locks to his apartment." Excuse me, what? I froze mid-bite, fork halfway to my mouth. I thought I misheard, but nope. She said it again, like she was asking someone to pass the salt. And the worst part? Clara nodded. No hesitation, no confusion, just a calm, obedient yes, mother kind of nod. Then she grabbed her purse and stood up like this was all part of the dinner schedule. Everyone kept eating like it was a normal Tuesday, as if wives leave mid-birthday dinner to go lock out their husbands all the time. The waiter looked at me like, "Sir, do I still bring the tiramisu or call for backup?" Margaret clinked her glass of wine and smiled at me. "Oh, don't look so surprised, Andrew. You know Clara just likes to be efficient." Efficient? Yeah, sure, if efficient means emotionally arsonist. I just sat there, staring at the spot where my wife had been, wondering what the hell kind of family tradition I'd married into. Jared leaned in, whispering, "Dude, blink twice if you need an escape plan." I would have laughed, but I was too busy trying to figure out if I was being pranked or divorced. Then Clara's dad, Harold, the human version of lukewarm oatmeal, spoke up. Well, maybe she forgot something. Yeah, Harold, like her respect for me. I forced a smile and raised my glass. "To family," I said, because sarcasm was the only oxygen I had left. Everyone toasted like nothing was wrong, while I mentally calculated how much it would cost to move to a city where in-laws aren't legally allowed to speak. An hour later, Clara came back, pale, shaking, eyes wide like she'd just seen a ghost, or worse, a mirror reflecting her life choices. She leaned toward her mom, whispering, "Mom there," but her voice trailed off, trembling. Margaret tilted her head, still in villain mode, sipping her wine like it was a prop. "They're what, dear?" she asked, and I swear, that woman's tone could curdle milk. Clara swallowed hard, tears pooling in her eyes, and for the first time that night, Margaret's confident smirk faltered. The table went silent. The jazz stopped. Even the waiter froze mid-step, holding someone's creme brulee like it was a hostage. "Clara." Margaret pressed again, quieter now. "What happened?" Clara's lips quivered, and she whispered something none of us could hear, but her expression said everything. It wasn't just shock, it was fear. Real, deep. I just saw something I can't unsee fear. My first instinct wasn't even to be angry anymore. It was confusion. Because what could possibly be at my apartment that had turned my wife into a trembling mess? I half expected her to say she found a ghost, or worse, my mother-in-law's reflection on every wall like a haunted portrait collection. But she didn't speak. She just stared at her hands, shaking. And that was the moment the air changed, the kind of silence that stretches too long, like the universe is holding its breath. Harold cleared his throat, pretending to be the voice of reason. "Maybe you should tell us what's going on." Margaret shot him a glare that could sterilize crops. "Don't rush her, Harold. She's obviously overwhelmed." "Overwhelmed? Lady, she left a birthday dinner to pull a surprise eviction stunt. I think we passed overwhelmed about 5 exits ago." I tried to keep my voice steady, but my sarcasm slipped out like muscle memory. "So, Should I blow out the candles now or wait for the locksmith's report? Jared choked on his drink. Even the waiter snorted. Margaret, of course, ignored me, too busy dissecting Clara's every micro-expression. Finally, Clara looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time all night. Her lip trembled, and she said softly, "You need to come home." My heart sank. "Why?" I asked, already dreading the answer. "Because," she started, but her voice broke. "There's police tape. Police tape. Around my door." That was not the birthday surprise I signed up for. Margaret gasped, one hand over her chest like she was auditioning for a soap opera. "Police tape? On your door." Her tone made it sound like she'd just discovered I was leading a double life as a drug lord. Harold looked at me suspiciously. "Son, is there something we should know?" I stared back, incredulous. "Yes, Harold, I've been running an underground casino in the pantry. You caught me." The sarcasm flew right over his bald head. Margaret leaned forward, voice low and dramatic. "Maybe you should explain yourself, Andrew." "Explain what?" I said. "I didn't put the police tape there." Jared tried to diffuse the tension with a nervous chuckle. "Hey, maybe it's a surprise party theme? Crime scene, marriage edition." No one laughed except me, because honestly, if I didn't laugh, I'd start throwing breadsticks. Clara stood up again, grabbing my hand this time. Her fingers were ice cold. "We need to go," she said, voice trembling. I looked at the rest of the table. Her parents, their judgmental faces, the awkward waiter still holding a cake with a single candle slowly melting like my patience. "Guess the party's over," I muttered. Margaret frowned. "We're not done here." "You're right," I said. "We're just changing venues, to my crime scene." Then I tossed the napkin on the table like it was a resignation letter and followed Clara out, my stomach twisting with a mix of dread and disbelief. The ride home was dead silent. Clara stared out the window, biting her lip. I glanced at her every few seconds, trying to piece it together. "You want to tell me what you saw?" I finally asked. She just shook her head. "You'll see." Which, by the way, is the least comforting answer you can give someone whose apartment has been wrapped like a present from Law and Order. When we pulled up, the red and blue lights from patrol cars were flashing against the night sky, painting everything in guilt and confusion. 2 officers were standing by the tape, talking into radios. I felt my heart drop into my shoes. And that's when it hit me, the absurdity of it all. I'd started the night eating overpriced pasta under twinkling lights, and now I was ending it staring at my own apartment door, surrounded by cops. Margaret's birthday ambush wasn't just a family stunt anymore. It had somehow snowballed into a full-blown mystery. I didn't know what waited behind that yellow tape, but I knew one thing for sure. Whatever it was, this was no longer just about a ruined birthday. This was personal. And I could practically hear the universe laughing in the background, whispering, "Happy birthday, champ. Hope you like chaos." Silence. Thick, heavy, awkward silence. The kind that makes you hyper-aware of every breath, every clink of silverware, every judgmental look from your in-laws who suddenly think you're starring in a true crime documentary. Clara's hands were shaking like Wi-Fi in a storm, and everyone at the table stared at her like she was the last contestant on a very tense game show. "What happened?" Margaret asked, her tone switching from bossy to concerned, but not real concern, mind you. The kind of fake sympathy that sounds like it's been filtered through decades of passive aggression. Clara swallowed hard, her voice barely above a whisper. "There's police tape around his door." I blinked. "Wait, my door? As in my apartment door?" Harold, who had been gnawing on steak like a man trying to prove a point about masculinity, finally stopped chewing. "Maybe someone reported your fashion choices," he said, smirking. I wanted to respond with something clever, but honestly, I was too busy wondering if I was about to be framed for something. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered instinctively, still staring at my wife like she'd just confessed to hiding bodies in the pantry. "Mr. Bennett, this is Officer Ray from Portland PD. Please contact us immediately regarding your apartment." My laughter died in my throat faster than my birthday candles had earlier. The table went dead quiet. Everyone was looking at me, waiting for the next episode of the Andrew Bennett Disaster Hour. Margaret clutched her pearls like she was auditioning for a Victorian drama. "Oh dear," she said, eyes wide with faux horror. "What have you done this time?" The woman spoke like I had a criminal record and a hobby in arson. I stood up, threw my napkin on the table, and sighed. Apparently, I threw a wild party without knowing, I said. Then I grabbed my coat, tossed a few bills on the table for the meal I no longer wanted, and walked out. Behind me, I heard Jared mutter, "Dude's birthday went from Olive Garden to CSI real quick." He wasn't wrong. The air outside was cold enough to slap some sense into me. My brain was trying to connect dots that refused to exist. Why would the police tape off my apartment? I lived alone, for crying out loud. Well, except for Clara occasionally dropping by to check on me, which was code for inspecting whether I'd washed dishes or burned my emotional support couch. By the time I reached my car, my phone buzzed again. Another call. Officer Ray again. "Mr. Bennett," he said as I picked up, his voice all business. "Are you in a safe location right now?" I blinked, staring around the parking lot like the ghost of my self-respect was about to jump me. Safe? Yeah, unless Olive Garden waiters are now armed. "Sir, we need you to meet us at your residence. We believe there's been a break-in." "A break-in?" I repeated. "You mean someone else got tired of my interior design and decided to help?" "Please don't go inside until we arrive," he warned. "The scene needs to stay secure." The way he said scene made my stomach twist. Scene was police speak for something way worse than mess. I drove over anyway, because curiosity kills cats and apparently also husbands with bad birthday luck. As I turned down my street, I saw it. Red and blue lights reflecting off the windows, my building looking like a crime scene from a bad Netflix show. 2 patrol cars. 1 cop scribbling notes. 1 yellow tape stretched across my doorway, fluttering like it was mocking me. My stomach dropped. It's one thing to have your wife change your locks, but it's another to have the police do it for you. Officer Ray approached. Tall guy, late 30s, serious face, but not unfriendly. "Mr. Bennett?" he asked, and I could tell he already knew it was me. The expression of someone about to deliver bad news to a man who clearly hadn't had a good day since 2008. "Depends who's asking," I said automatically. "If you're selling extended car warranties, no." He cracked a small smile. "No, sir. We received a report of a break-in. Door forced open. Nothing stolen." I frowned. "Nothing stolen? You sure? Because my dignity's been missing for years." He didn't laugh. "Tough crowd." "You live here alone?" he asked, glancing at his notes. "For now," I said. "My wife and we're going through something complicated." He nodded like he'd heard that line 1,000 times before. "Anyone else have access to your keys?" I hesitated. "My wife," I said. "But she left dinner to change the locks, on your recommendation, apparently." His eyebrow shot up. "She did what?" "Long story," I muttered, rubbing my forehead. "My mother-in-law suggested she do it." I think she was aiming for dramatic irony. Before he could respond, his radio crackled. Static, then a voice. "We've got a match on the fingerprints inside." Officer Ray's expression shifted immediately. Serious, then confused, then something close to surprise. He turned to me. "You might want to sit down for this." My pulse spiked. "Why? Is it my mother-in-law?" "Because honestly, that'd make perfect sense." "No," he said slowly, glancing back at the building. "The prints don't belong to you or your wife." "Then whose are they?" "Santa Claus?" I asked. He gave me a look like I wasn't helping. "A man named Patrick Hale. That name mean anything to you?" I blinked. "Patrick Hale? Patrick?" Then it clicked. "Wait, you mean the landlord's nephew? The shirtless handyman who shows up uninvited to check the wiring? That Patrick?" He nodded. "That's the one." I groaned. "Oh, for crying out loud. The guy once told me he could fix my sink with a spoon and optimism." "Well," Ray said, "he broke in using a copied key. He's under investigation for several similar cases. You might want to check if anything's missing." I followed him inside, my nerves buzzing like bad static. My apartment looked the same at first glance. Same couch, same half-dead plant, same empty pizza box I'd been meaning to throw out. But something felt off. The air was wrong, heavy, stale. Then I noticed it. Every photo of me and Clara on the shelves had been flipped face down. Every single one. My skin crawled. "Creepy doesn't even begin to cover it," I muttered. Ray was taking notes. "He didn't touch your electronics, valuables, or cash. This was targeted." "Targeted?" I repeated, my sarcasm barely holding the panic at bay. "What? Like a serial decorator who hates nostalgia?" "More like someone sending a message," he said. That's when I saw it. On the coffee table, perfectly centered, was a single white envelope. No name, no stamp, just there. "Tell your wife's mother," It read in block letters, "The truth always finds its way home." I read it twice, then looked up at Ray. "Officer, I don't know what's scarier, this message, or my mother-in-law having enemies with better penmanship than me." He didn't laugh again. Seriously, this man was immune to humor. "Do you know anyone who might have a grudge against your wife's family?" he asked. I scoffed. "You mean besides the entire neighborhood association? Margaret's been terrorizing the HOA since Bush was in office." He didn't react. "We'll run the note for Prince. You should probably stay somewhere else tonight." I nodded, even though somewhere else basically meant my car, since all my friends had either moved, gotten married, or joined pyramid schemes. As the officers packed up, I stood there, staring at the flipped photos and the envelope. My birthday had officially gone from mildly humiliating to might require a Netflix true crime special. I pulled out my phone to text Clara. "We need to talk," I typed, then deleted it. Because what would I even say? "Hey babe, your mom's hit list just sent a calling card to my coffee table." Yeah, that'd go well. Instead, I sat down on the couch, staring at the photos. The one of us at the lake, our wedding picture, even the goofy one with the dog, all face down. It was like someone was saying, "You don't belong here anymore." And maybe that was the point. Maybe Margaret wanted me out for good, and this was her twisted way of forcing the narrative. But then, why the message? Why Patrick? My head hurt from all the theories swirling around. Officer Ray came back one last time. "We'll call if anything new comes up," he said. "Try to get some rest." I laughed hollowly. "Sure, right after my existential crisis nap." He gave a small nod, pity mixed with professionalism, and left. When the last patrol car drove off, I finally locked the door, or what was left of it, and sat in the dark. The city lights blinked through my blinds like restless eyes. Somewhere between exhaustion and disbelief, I realized something horrifying. This wasn't random. Margaret had wanted those locks changed tonight, and now I knew why. She wasn't worried about my safety. She was worried about her secrets. And if there's one thing I've learned from being married into that family, it's this: secrets never stay buried forever. Sometimes, they just wait for the perfect birthday to crawl back out. By the time I pulled up to my apartment, it looked like Santa's sleigh had collided with a crime scene. Red and blue lights bouncing off every wet surface, yellow tape waving like a cruel birthday streamer, and two cops standing guard with the kind of energy that says, "We'd rather be anywhere else." It's one thing to have bad luck, but it's another to arrive at your own home and wonder if you're about to be the plot twist in someone's true crime podcast. Officer Ray was there, looking like he hadn't blinked since the Reagan era. He met me halfway up the walkway and gave me that look cops give when they're deciding whether you're a witness or a suspect. "You Mr. Bennett?" he asked. "Depends who's asking," I said. "If you're here to serve a birthday subpoena from my mother-in-law, then I've moved to Canada." He cracked half a smile. Progress, considering last time he was about as reactive as a rock. "Relax," he said. "We just need to talk. We got reports of a break-in." I stared at the door, splintered near the lock. Yellow tape stretched across it like a bad Christmas ribbon. "Door forced open, nothing stolen." He continued, flipping his notebook like it owed him money. "Nothing stolen?" I repeated. That can't be right. My last sliver of peace was definitely taken. He ignored the sarcasm, either because he was used to people deflecting with humor, or because he had no idea what it meant to be married into a family that could weaponize dinner. He motioned for me to follow as he ducked under the tape. I hesitated for a second, because nothing good ever comes after "come inside," then stepped through the threshold. My apartment looked the same at first glance. The same couch I'd overpaid for during a midlife crisis sale. The same crooked painting Clara insisted was minimalist. The same plant I'd been keeping alive out of spite. But there was something off, a kind of wrongness that you can feel before you can name it. The air felt heavier, colder, like the walls had been holding their breath all night. The overhead light flickered faintly, and I muttered, "Great, now even my electricity's scared." Officer Ray crouched near the lock, examining the splintered wood. "You said your wife has a copy of the keys?" "Had," I corrected. "She left dinner early to change the locks." Long story. Short version. My birthday turned into a Home Depot field trip. He frowned. "Well, whoever did this used a key, then forced it. That's unusual." "Yeah," I said. "Unusual is my brand lately." As I took a step into the living room, something crunched under my shoe. I looked down and saw glass, picture frame glass. My stomach did a little backflip. On the floor, half hidden by the rug, was a photo of Clara and me from our second anniversary. The frame was shattered, and the picture had been flipped upside down. We didn't touch anything, Ray said. That's how we found it. I knelt down and picked it up. Every single photo in sight, on the walls, shelves, even the one on the fridge, had been flipped face down. Not broken, not taken, just turned away. Like the intruder wanted to erase us, but politely. This is next level creepy, I muttered. I mean, at least steal the TV if you're going to commit a crime. Don't just come in and make it weird. Ray didn't laugh. He was too busy walking toward the coffee table, where something white caught his attention. Sir, we'll check for prints. He pulled out a portable scanner, swabbed the table, and in under a minute, his radio crackled again. We've got a match, said the voice on the other end. Ray's jaw tightened. Who? I asked, already bracing for whatever nonsense was next. Name's Patrick Hale. I groaned. You mean that Patrick? The landlord's nephew who once showed up shirtless to fix my light bulb and ended up drinking half my beer. Ray nodded. He's been a suspect in multiple break-ins. Copies keys, goes through people's stuff, sometimes leaves messages. Messages? I said. Like what? Hey, nice furniture. Too bad you have trust issues. Ray ignored that, scanning the room again. The thing is, this doesn't look random. Whoever he's working for, or with, knew what they wanted. Which was? I asked. No idea yet. But whoever it is, they wanted to scare you. I laughed, but it came out hollow. Mission accomplished. As the officers worked, I wandered into the bedroom, careful not to touch anything. It looked normal, too normal. The bed was made, which was weird because I definitely didn't do that before leaving. The closet doors were open, and a faint smell of lavender hung in the air, like someone had just been there. I froze when I saw the small jewelry box on Clara's side of the dresser. It was open, empty. My chest tightened. Hey, Officer Ray, I called. He came in. What's up? My wife's jewelry box. It's empty. But you said nothing was stolen. He looked inside, puzzled. There's no sign of forced entry into the drawers. Maybe she took them. I frowned. No, she hasn't worn any of this in months. He scribbled something down again. We'll add it to the report. I nodded, rubbing my temple. So to recap, someone broke in with a copy of my key, flipped my life upside down, left me a ransom note without a ransom, and possibly stole my wife's jewelry just for fun? That's about right, he said. I've seen worse. Yeah, well, I muttered, so have I? Thanksgiving with her parents. Ray didn't smile, but I swear I saw his eye twitch like he was holding back a laugh. Listen, Mr. Bennett, he said. You might want to find somewhere else to stay tonight. Just in case. I nodded. Yeah, sure. I'll check into the hotel emotional breakdown. Rooms always available. He gave me his card, told me to call if I remembered anything, then stepped outside to radio in the forensics team. I stood there in the doorway, staring at my wrecked home. The sound of the rain outside was steady, almost mocking. I walked over to the coffee table again, staring at that envelope. Tell your wife's mother the truth always finds its way home. The words rattled around in my head like loose screws. See, Margaret had enemies, plural. From the HOA president she'd called a glorified clipboard, to the neighbor whose mailbox she once spray-painted because it clashed with the neighborhood aesthetic. But this didn't feel like some random vendetta. This was personal. Someone was targeting her through me, and I couldn't decide if that made me a victim or collateral damage. I sank into the couch and ran a hand through my hair. I couldn't help but think about that folder I'd found weeks ago in the attic. Old property deeds with my forged signature, shady-looking documents with Margaret's name stamped on them. I'd brushed it off then, figured it was one of her ancient real estate schemes. But now it fit. Maybe the truth the letter mentioned was buried somewhere in those papers. My phone buzzed. A text from Clara. Where are you? I stared at it for a long second, then typed back. Home. Police still here. We need to talk. She didn't reply. Of course she didn't. Classic Clara, emotionally unavailable and selectively mute when accountability enters the chat. Officer Ray came back in, shaking his head. We're wrapping up here. You good? Define good, I said. If good means slightly traumatized but still functional, sure. He gave a half smile. We'll keep you updated. As he left, I heard him mutter to his partner. This guy's got one hell of a family. You have no idea, I thought. Once the last cruiser pulled away, I sat alone in the dim light, staring at the cracked door. The apartment smelled faintly of rain and police tape, an oddly specific scent that screamed, "Your life just got weird." Somewhere down the hall, a neighbor's dog barked, and I jumped like I was guilty of something. I got up, flipped one of the photos back upright, the one from our wedding day. Clara smiling, me in a suit I could barely afford, both of us looking stupidly happy. I laughed quietly. "Wow," I muttered to the picture. "We really peaked that day, huh?" I flipped it back down. Couldn't stand to look at it anymore. Before heading out, I locked the busted door as best I could, because apparently, I still believed in the power of symbolic gestures. As I stepped outside into the rain, my reflection caught in the window, a man drenched, exhausted, and newly promoted to lead character in a crime mystery he never auditioned for. I climbed into my car, turned the key, and just sat there. The engine hummed softly, and I whispered to myself, "The truth finds its way home, huh?" Then I smirked. Well, I hope it knows my mother-in-law's address. There's something uniquely humiliating about standing in your own living room while a police officer tells you a half-naked handyman has better access to your apartment than you do. "The prints don't belong to you or your wife," Officer Ray said. His tone flat like this was just another Tuesday on his weird job bingo card. "Then whose are they?" I asked. "Santa Claus? The Easter Bunny?" Maybe my mother-in-law's dark soul finally took physical form. He ignored my coping mechanism entirely, because apparently sarcasm isn't admissible in evidence. Instead, he turned his tablet toward me. "A man named Patrick Hale. Ring any bells?" I blinked like an idiot. "Patrick Hale? Oh, come on, Patrick? The landlord's nephew? The guy who thinks deodorant is optional and every repair requires removing his shirt? That Patrick?" Ray nodded grimly, like this was breaking national security news. "He broke in using a copy key. We believe he's connected to multiple break-ins across the district." I groaned, rubbing my temples. "You're telling me that the guy who once fixed my faucet with duct tape is suddenly Jason Bourne? Great. My life officially qualifies as slapstick crime." We stepped inside again so Ray could take a closer look at the mess, or lack thereof. Nothing stolen, no forced drawers, no cash missing. My laptop was still there, though I was half hoping someone had done me the favor of stealing my work emails. But one detail made my skin crawl. Every single framed photo of me and Clara was flipped face down. Not just random ones. The wedding picture, the vacation selfie, the Christmas shot where I was wearing reindeer antlers, and a 1,000-yard stare, all turned down. "Looks like he's got a flair for the dramatic," Ray said, scanning the room. "Yeah," I said. "Nothing screams, I've lost control of my life, like a man who gets haunted by his own wedding photo." The air was heavy, and the silence louder than a marching band. Then I noticed it. An envelope on the coffee table, like something straight out of a thriller movie, neatly placed, not tossed. Ray pulled on a fresh glove and handed it to me once he'd checked it for prints. I hesitated before opening it, because, well, the last time I opened something unexpected, it was a routine paper that turned out to transfer my assets to my wife's mom. But curiosity wins every time. Inside was a single piece of paper, in bold black ink, perfectly written. "Tell your wife's mother the truth always finds its way home." I read it twice, then said, "Officer, I don't know what's scarier, this message or the fact that my mother-in-law is now the main character of someone else's vendetta." Ray frowned, studying the note. "You're saying someone could be targeting her?" "Oh, I'm not saying it. I'm celebrating it," I replied. "But yeah, if someone's out there trying to rattle Margaret Bennett, then I'd like to buy that man a drink." He gave me the "you're not helping" face, so I toned it down. "Look, officer, you don't understand. Margaret's the kind of woman who calls 911 if someone parks slightly crooked near her mailbox. She's made enemies in every zip code she's lived in. This could be anyone. Still," he said, "if your wife's mother is involved, this isn't just random. Do you think she could have hired this man for something?" I laughed, a sound that came out somewhere between disbelief and a cry for help. "You mean besides emotional terrorism?" "Possibly. The woman treats manipulation like CrossFit. She does it daily and brags about it afterward." Ray started scanning the edges of the note under a small light, his face serious. "We'll run it for prints," he said. "But if you're right and she's connected, this could go deeper than a break-in." That made me pause. "Deeper how?" "Financial crimes, fraud, intimidation," he said. "People don't just break into flip photos and leave cryptic notes. That's not theft. That's a message. I swallowed, my mind racing. Suddenly, the weird folder I'd found in the attic weeks ago came back to me. The one with old property deeds, forged signatures, and documents that looked like a mix between monopoly money and felony paperwork. I hadn't thought much of it at the time, but now it felt like a breadcrumb trail. You okay? Ray asked, noticing my face go pale. Yeah, I said, just realizing my birthday might have come with bonus federal charges. We moved through the apartment together, checking each room. The bathroom? Untouched, except for a single towel moved from the rack to the floor, like Patrick had dried his moral compass with it. The kitchen? Same as before, except the fridge door was slightly ajar. He opened your fridge? Ray asked, scribbling. Guess he got hungry after violating my privacy. I muttered. Maybe he's looking for leftover dignity. Ray opened a cabinet, frowned, and pointed. Sir, is this yours? I turned, and there it was. A small black flash drive tucked behind the coffee mugs. I blinked. Nope, that's new. My last data storage device was a drawer full of regret. Ray bagged it. We'll check it at the station. Could be related to your landlord's nephew or whoever's pulling his strings. My chest tightened. Wait, you think this was orchestrated? Not random. No one breaks into the same man's apartment on his birthday, leaves a note referencing his mother-in-law, and plants a drive unless they've got an agenda, Ray said. Happy birthday, huh? He wasn't wrong. If the universe had a sense of humor, this was it. I leaned against the counter, staring at the half-empty bottle of wine Clara, and I had opened last month when things still pretended to be normal. I could almost hear her voice, sweet, distracted, full of that calm entitlement. You always overreact, Drew. Yeah, well, tell that to the police tape. Ray's phone buzzed, and he stepped aside to take the call. I caught words like confirmation, financial link, and suspicious transfer. When he hung up, his face looked more interested than before. You said your mother-in-law's name is Margaret, right? I groaned. Don't tell me she's been promoted from annoying to criminal. He ignored that. Our system shows a payment from an account under that name to Patrick Hale, labeled as maintenance work. I laughed so hard it came out half-choked. Maintenance? Yeah, that's her favorite word for ruining people's lives. I knew it. I knew she was behind this circus. Ray frowned. This could put her in serious trouble. Officer, I said, I've been waiting my whole marriage to hear that sentence. He didn't laugh. Again, seriously, this man was allergic to joy, but he did start typing rapidly. We'll need to question her, he said. Think she'll cooperate. Cooperate. She still thinks the moon landing was a tax scam. You'll need a priest, not a warrant. Still, something about this new discovery twisted my gut. If Margaret was paying off a known burglar, it wasn't for fun. She was hiding something, and that something might involve me. Listen, Ray said, packing his things. If you find any paperwork, documents, or correspondence that connects back to her, call me immediately. Oh, don't worry, I said. I plan on printing her crimes on a t-shirt. He gave me one last nod, then headed for the door. The second he left, the silence hit me again. The kind that fills every corner and makes you question your life choices. I sank into the couch, head spinning. My mother-in-law had officially gone from passive-aggressive to felony-aggressive. I thought back to that birthday dinner, her smug smile, the whisper that started all of this. She'd told Clara to change the locks not because she cared about safety, but because she wanted something in here gone. Something incriminating. Something like that flash drive. I stared at the sealed evidence bag Ray had taken it in. What if it wasn't meant for him to find? What if it was bait? My curiosity and my stupidity started arm wrestling, and curiosity won. I reached for my laptop. It wasn't like I could make things worse. Famous last words. I popped the flash drive in, half expecting it to explode, but instead, a single folder appeared. MB_projects. I clicked it. Dozens of scanned documents filled the screen. Bank transfers, property deeds, contracts, all with Margaret's signature and someone else's name typed above mine. My name. On fake signatures. My blood ran cold. This wasn't random at all. She'd been using my name to funnel money through her fake companies. The maintenance payment to Patrick wasn't maintenance. It was cleanup. He'd been sent to destroy this drive. I yanked it out, heart pounding, and threw it onto the table. Oh, Margaret, I muttered. You've really outdone yourself. My phone buzzed again. Clara. I picked up, my voice colder than I intended. What do you know about Patrick Hale? Silence. Then, why are you asking? Because your mom's payroll just got a lot more interesting, I said. She stammered. Drew, whatever you think, save it. I cut in. You left dinner to change the locks, remember? Funny how that turned into an evidence cleanup mission. She tried to speak again, but I hung up. I was done being the clueless husband in their family soap opera. As the night stretched on, I couldn't shake the image of those flipped photos, the deliberate message. The truth always finds its way home. Maybe Patrick wasn't just working for Margaret. Maybe he was working against her too. Whatever it was, the truth was knocking, and this time, I was done ignoring the door. The next morning started like any good sequel. Me, half awake, clutching a mug of coffee like it owed me rent, staring at the busted lock on my apartment door, wondering when my life turned into a crime drama rerun. My phone buzzed before I could even take a sip. It was Officer Ray, which, let's be honest, isn't the name you want lighting up your screen at 8 a.m., Mr. Bennett, he said, voice serious enough to make my caffeine retreat. We traced a payment to Patrick Hale. Oh good, I said. Does he take returns? The payment came from an account under your mother-in-law's name, Ray continued. I froze mid-sip. Come again. Margaret Whitmore Bennett. The transaction memo reads, maintenance work. I laughed, the kind of laugh that sounds like it's holding hands with a breakdown. Of course she called it that. Maintenance work is her favorite euphemism for emotional sabotage. Ray ignored my commentary. We're pulling financial records now, but this ties her directly to the break-in. I leaned against the counter, staring at the faint fingerprint powder smudges still coating the doorknob. You're telling me my mother-in-law hired a shirtless handyman to break into my house? Looks that way, he said. Mr. Bennett, I need you to be honest. Does she have any reason to hide something in your apartment? Oh, buddy, did she ever? A week ago, I'd stumbled on an old folder while searching for my tax documents. Dusty, unlabeled, and tucked behind boxes labeled Christmas stuff and Clara's college trophies, the ones she didn't actually win. Inside were photocopies of property deeds, bank statements, and contracts, all featuring my name, but signatures that looked like they were written by a caffeinated raccoon. Margaret's signature appeared beside mine on almost every page. At the time, I figured she was doing her usual real estate witchcraft, buying land to flip for profit while using her family as unpaid co-signers. But now, standing in a crime scene that used to be my home, it made sense. She wasn't buying property. She was laundering money. Mr. Bennett? Ray's voice snapped me back. Yeah, sorry, I said. She might have used my name on some documents. I didn't think it was a big deal at the time. He sighed. People never do. After he hung up, I sat down at my kitchen table and opened my laptop, pulling up my bank account. I scrolled through the transactions until I found it. 2 withdrawals last month labeled Bennett Holdings. Except, newsflash, I don't own a company. My financial empire begins and ends with a Costco membership. Then came the part that made my stomach drop, a deposit from an account with her name on it for $50,000, followed by an automatic transfer out 2 hours later. That wasn't generosity. That was money laundering 101. My phone buzzed again, this time Clara. Perfect timing. Morning, she said, her voice too calm, too rehearsed. Morning, I echoed, in the tone of a man who knows something's about to explode. I just got off the phone with my mom, she said. She's really upset about last night. Yeah, I said. I bet hiring a felon to break into your son-in-law's house can really take the joy out of your morning meditation. That's not what happened, Clara said quickly. She was just trying to protect the family's interests. By sending a criminal named Patrick Hale to steal a flash drive? What flash drive? She said too quickly. Gotcha. Oh, the one with every fake signature your mom's been using to build her real estate empire in my name? I said. Silence. The kind of silence that could win awards. Then she whispered, You weren't supposed to see that. No kidding, I said. Wasn't supposed to find out my birthday surprise was tax evasion, either. It's not what you think, she said, which is exactly what people say right before it turns out to be exactly what you think. Then explain it, I said. Because right now it looks like your mom's one notarized document away from orange jumpsuits and reality TV. It was a family trust, Clara said, hesitating. She put assets under your name temporarily to protect them from an audit. Oh, so I'm a human shield now. You weren't supposed to be dragged into this, she said. Patrick was only supposed to get the documents back. And the cops, I said. We're only supposed to sing happy birthday. She sighed. I'll fix it. No, Clara, I said, my voice low. You won't. I'm done playing the family idiot in your mother's financial soap opera. Then I hung up. I spent the next hour sifting through files on my laptop, digging deeper. The deeper I went, the uglier it got. Offshore accounts, fake shell corporations, Bennett Investments, Whitmore Estates, even one hilariously called Sunshine Consulting LLC. All funneled through my social security number. Margaret wasn't just shady. She was practically a solar eclipse. Each transaction was labeled with vague memos: consulting fee, legal retainer, charitable donation. The woman had built an entire fake economy on her laptop while lecturing me at dinner about fiscal responsibility. I printed everything I found, the papers stacking up like the world's angriest birthday cake. Every page screamed one thing: I was the patsy in her financial circus. Around noon, Officer Ray called again. We pulled Hale's phone records, he said. He got 3 calls the night of your break-in, all from your mother-in-law's number. Please tell me she at least used a burner phone, I said. She didn't, Ray said. She called from her landline. Of course she did, I muttered. Margaret doesn't do subtlety. She once forged a church donation receipt and handed it to the pastor. Mr. Bennett, Ray said, you might want to come down to the station. If this goes to court, you're going to need to make a statement. I'll be there, I said, then paused. Officer, just for my own sanity, am I under investigation? No, he said. You're technically the victim. Technically. Well, you were listed as a co-signer on multiple fraudulent documents, so... Got it, I said. Victim adjacent. I hung up and stared at the growing pile of papers on my table. My head was spinning, but one thought kept echoing. Margaret had planned this. She knew exactly what she was doing. If those files had been destroyed by Patrick, the paper trail would have ended, and I would have been left holding the bag when the feds came knocking. She wasn't just greedy, she was strategic. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to stop playing defense. That's when my phone buzzed again. Jared this time, my best friend, the kind of guy who treats drama like it's free entertainment. Dude, he said, I just saw your mother-in-law on the news. Isn't she the one who owns Whitmore Estates? Owned, I corrected. Past tense. Because Channel 9 just said her company's under federal audit. I grinned so wide it could have cracked glass. Oh, karma works fast these days. You okay? Jared asked. Nope, I said. But at least now I'm entertained. I spent the rest of the afternoon organizing the documents into neat little piles, labeled with sticky notes like evidence, fraud, and stuff that'll make Margaret cry. I made copies of everything and slipped them into an envelope. Then I looked around my apartment. The flipped photos, the fingerprint powder, the faint outline of police tape still on the floor, and realized something poetic. Margaret had tried to erase me from my own life, and all she did was highlight her own fingerprints instead. The woman spent decades playing puppet master, but this time, the strings were snapping. As the sun dipped low, painting the walls in orange light, I sat back with my coffee and whispered, "Happy belated birthday to me." The universe didn't clap, but it didn't laugh either, and honestly, that was progress. My mother-in-law had built her little empire on lies and manipulation, and now it was my turn to light the fuse on her masterpiece. The money trail wasn't just a path, it was a noose, and she'd tied the knot herself. I packed the folder, sealed the envelope, and scrawled Financial Crimes Division, Evidence on the front. As I did, I imagined Margaret's face when she found out her maintenance project had turned into a federal headline. She'd probably clutch her pearls, pour herself a glass of imported guilt, and say, well, this is all such a misunderstanding. Sure, Margaret. The same way a tornado is a breeze. That night, as I slid the envelope into my bag and headed toward the station, I realized something. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was playing offense. For years, Margaret's family treated me like the disposable background character in their rich people drama. But now, I had the script. And this time, I was the one writing the ending. If hell hosted family dinners, this would be the pilot episode. I'd invited Clara and her mother over for what I called a civil discussion, but what, in truth, was a trap dressed in table linens. I texted them both that morning, short, polite, lethal. Dinner at my place. No surprises, no locksmiths. Clara responded with a cautious, sure. Margaret, of course, didn't respond at all. She preferred her silence loud. I spent the day preparing, lighting candles, cleaning up the fingerprint powder left by the cops, setting out real plates instead of the emergency paper ones I'd been using since the break-in. If I was going to confront the woman who'd orchestrated the financial downfall of our family like it was an afternoon Pilates class, I was at least going to do it over pasta. The doorbell rang at 6 sharp, which meant Margaret had been waiting in her car for 5 minutes, so she could pretend she was punctual. She walked in first, wearing pearls big enough to double as flotation devices, followed by Clara, whose face looked like she'd just been told she was starring in a horror movie and hadn't read the script yet. Margaret sniffed, her gaze sweeping across my apartment like a customs agent inspecting illegal goods. "Still living here, huh?" she said. "Brave choice." "Yeah," I replied, pouring wine. "Rent's cheap when you don't forge your own lease." Her smile faltered. "Oh, we're starting early tonight, I see." "No," I said, gesturing to the table. "We're just skipping the small talk foreplay." Clara sat between us, the human version of Switzerland, hands fidgeting with her napkin. I served the food, spaghetti carbonara, which felt poetic, considering how tangled this family was, and sat down opposite Margaret. "So," I began, swirling my wine like I was on a talk show, "how's the legal side of life treating you?" Her jaw twitched. "Excuse me." "Well, the police seem to have taken a sudden interest in your finances," I said casually. "Must be exhausting, laundering money and ruining birthdays at the same time." Clara dropped her fork with a clatter. "Drew, what?" I asked, feigning innocence. "I'm just trying to make dinner conversation." Margaret's eyes narrowed, sharp enough to cut steak. "You shouldn't have called the police. You shouldn't have sent a criminal into my home," I shot back. She leaned forward, her perfume choking the air between us. "You have no idea what you're talking about." "Oh, I think I do," I said. "I found the flash drive, the forged signatures, the offshore accounts." I let that sink in, savoring the silence that followed like a fine dessert. Clara looked like she wanted to melt into the floor. "Honey, Mom was just trying to help." "Help who?" I interrupted. "The FBI?" Margaret's mask cracked for half a second, but she quickly recovered, swirling her wine like she was trying to hypnotize me with Cabernet. "Those documents weren't meant for you." "Then why did your name appear next to my signature?" I asked. She smirked, tilting her head. "Because you never read what you signed, dear. I assumed you wouldn't start now." I almost applauded. "Touché," I said. But this time I did, and I hit record while I read them. Her eyes widened, the color draining from her face faster than Clara's student loan forgiveness. "You what?" "Oh yeah," I said, tapping my phone. "See, I knew you'd try to spin this into one of your it's just paperwork, darling lectures. So I decided to prepare." Clara shot me a warning look. "Drew, please." "No, Clara," I said, voice steady. "For once, let's not protect her from herself." Margaret stood abruptly, pacing like a caged CEO who just realized her stock crashed. "You're making a mistake," she hissed. "You don't understand what's at stake here." I leaned back in my chair, smirking. "Pretty sure it's called federal prison, but I could be wrong." She slammed her glass down. "If this gets out, your father-in-law could go to jail." "You mean the same man who called me a financial embarrassment with legs last Thanksgiving?" I asked. "He can bunk with Patrick. Maybe they'll start a book club." Clara gasped. "Stop joking. This is serious." "Oh, I'm dead serious," I said, pointing my fork for emphasis. "I'm just funnier than the situation." Margaret folded her arms. "We did it to protect the family." I laughed so hard I nearly choked. "Protect the family? You used my name to funnel dirty money through fake companies and send a burglar to erase the evidence. That's not protection, Margaret. That's an episode of American Greed." "You'll regret this," she said quietly, her voice trembling, not with fear, but with fury. "Maybe," I said, sipping my wine, "but at least I'll regret it from the comfort of not being in prison." The room went silent again, the tension so thick it could have been bottled and sold as seasoning. Rain began tapping against the window, steady and rhythmic, like background applause for my comeback. Clara's eyes darted between us, her voice trembling. "Mom, just stop. Please." Margaret turned to her daughter, her expression softening slightly. "You're not taking his side, are you?" Clara hesitated. "I just want this to end." "Oh, it'll end," I said. "But not the way you think." I reached under the table and pulled out a small folder, the physical copies of everything I'd printed that morning. Margaret's face drained completely. You didn't. Oh, I did, I said, sliding it toward her. Signed, sealed, and copied. Multiple times, actually. You can't just forge people's names and assume they won't learn how to print PDFs. She flipped through the pages with shaking hands, the reality sinking in. Her composure cracked for the first time. Where did you get this? She whispered. Your mistake, I said. You left the same password on every file. Pro tip, if you're committing felonies, maybe don't use your grandson's birthday. Clara buried her face in her hands. God, I can't believe this. I looked at her, softer now. Believe it. Your mom's been laundering money through shell companies for years, and when she realized the audit was coming, she tried to use me as her scapegoat. That's not true. Margaret barked. It's creative accounting. Lady, I said, if creativity counted in court, Picasso would have been a tax attorney. She stood there frozen for a long second before suddenly laughing. A sharp, humorless sound that made my skin crawl. You think you've won, don't you? She said. You think exposing this will make you the hero. But do you have any idea what happens when powerful people get cornered? I shrugged. Yeah, they usually end up giving interviews from behind glass. You'll destroy Clara's family, she snapped. You'll ruin everything. You already did that, I said. I'm just cleaning up the mess. Margaret's face hardened into that same smug expression she wore the day she told me I married above my potential. You'll regret this, she repeated. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon. You know, I said, leaning forward. You've been promising me that for years, and I'm starting to think you just don't have the follow-through. For a moment, no one spoke. The rain got heavier outside, filling the silence with its own judgment. Then Clara whispered, Drew, what are you going to do? I looked at her for a long moment, trying to remember the woman I'd fallen in love with before all the lies and her mother's fingerprints covered everything. I'm going to make sure the right people see those files, I said simply. And after that, I'm going to start over. Without this circus. Margaret snorted. You'll never escape this family. We make sure of that. I smiled. Then I guess I'll see you in court. She glared at me one last time, then grabbed her purse and stormed toward the door, muttering curses that probably violated several church bylaws. The door slammed so hard a picture fell off the wall, the only one that hadn't been flipped face down by Patrick. I picked it up. It was from the first Christmas after Clara and I got married, before everything turned toxic. I set it back upright, dusted it off, and said softly, Guess you survived another round, huh? Clara stayed seated, staring at the empty wine glass in front of her. You didn't have to humiliate her like that, she whispered. She humiliated herself, I said. I just added lighting. She looked up, eyes wet but sharp. You think you're better than her, don't you? No, I said. Just smarter. And less likely to bribe a locksmith. She didn't reply. After a long silence, she stood, grabbed her coat, and said quietly, I don't know if I can forgive you for this. You don't have to, I said. Just remember who actually broke the law. She hesitated at the door, looked back once, and then left. I watched the taillights fade into the rain, the apartment suddenly feeling bigger and emptier at the same time. I sat back down, poured myself another glass of wine, and stared at the folder she'd left behind. The proof, the leverage, the end of an era. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small in my own home. I didn't feel like the background character in Margaret's grand production. I felt free, and as thunder rumbled in the distance, I raised my glass toward the window and said, To the devil and her daughter. May karma have better table manners than I do. You ever see someone's confidence crack in real time? It's like watching a luxury car get keyed in slow motion. You know it's wrong to enjoy it, but damn, it's satisfying. That's exactly what it felt like looking at Margaret pacing across my living room like an executive who'd just realized her stock portfolio was built on monopoly money. She wasn't the unshakable queen anymore. She was a cornered chess piece realizing checkmate was seconds away. If this gets out, she hissed, your father-in-law could go to jail. I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed, because if there was one thing I'd learned from years of surviving her holiday dinners, it was how to savor dramatic irony. You mean Harold? I asked, tilting my head. The same man who once called me a financial embarrassment with legs? Let him bunk with Patrick. I'll send him a toothbrush. Clara gasped like I'd just insulted a saint. Stop joking. This is serious. I'm dead serious, I said. I'm just funnier than the situation. Margaret glared at me like she was calculating how many minutes it would take to bury me behind a country club. We did it to protect the family, she snapped. No, you did it to protect your reputation, I said, smiling. There's a difference. One's selfless, the other's your brand. She pointed a trembling finger at me. You'll regret this. Maybe, I said, but I'll regret it from the comfort of not being in prison. For once, she didn't have a comeback. It was like I'd unplugged her from her own drama generator. She turned toward the window, the sound of rain filling the silence like background applause for my best performance yet. Clara's eyes darted between us, her voice soft and pleading. Can we just stop this before it gets worse? I looked at her, exasperated. Clara, this got worse the moment your mom decided my signature was a community project. She flinched, and I instantly felt the old reflex kick in, the one where I used to soften whenever she looked hurt. But not this time. You stood by her, Clara, I said quietly. You knew something wasn't right. I didn't know it was this bad, she said. I thought she was helping Dad with the taxes. I laughed, shaking my head. Yeah, and I thought marriage meant mutual trust. Turns out we both misread the fine print. Margaret spun around, voice sharp again. You think you're clever, don't you? Oh, absolutely, I said. But not as clever as you thought you were when you sent a criminal into my home. She blinked, caught off guard. You have no proof of that. I have payment receipts, I said, grinning. You labeled the transaction maintenance work, which, honestly, is the funniest part. What were you maintaining? The illusion. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Clara looked at me, desperate. Can we please not do this here? Where else? I asked. The truth deserves good lighting. Margaret finally snapped. You don't understand what it takes to keep a family together, she shouted, her voice echoing through the apartment. The things I've done, the choices I've made, they were for all of us. I clapped slowly, because sarcasm is my love language. Oh, sure, nothing says family first like identity theft and offshore accounts. You're insufferable, she spat. And you're indicted, I said. So I guess we're even. Clara slammed her hands on the table. Enough. Both of you. The sound startled us all. Even the storm outside seemed to pause. She took a shaky breath. This isn't helping anyone. I stood, pushing my chair back. Oh, I disagree. This is helping me remember why I stopped letting your mother talk me into anything. Every conversation with her ends with me paying for someone else's sins. Margaret's tone shifted, softer, almost human. Andrew, she said, stepping closer. You could make this all go away. Just say those documents were a mistake. You signed them without realizing. You'll be fine, and so will we. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You mean lie under oath so you can keep brunching with the country club crowd? You owe this family something, she said. We took you in. You mean you tolerated me until I paid off Clara's student loans? I snapped. Don't rewrite history. Her face twisted. Without us, you'd be nothing. I smiled. And yet, without me, you'd be in handcuffs right now. Funny how karma does math. Clara sank back into her seat, silent tears sliding down her face. I should have felt bad, but all I felt was tired. Tired of the lies, the manipulation, the constant rewriting of truth to fit Margaret's narrative. You built this house of cards, I said quietly. Now you're mad I brought a fan. Margaret's hands trembled, but she tried one last time to play the sympathy card. Think about your wife. Think about what this will do to her. Funny, I said. You never thought about what your schemes did to me. You're not innocent, she barked. You benefited from everything I did. Yeah, I said, like getting interrogated by cops and having my name tied to fraud. Real perks. For a moment, her mask slipped again. I could see the exhaustion behind her eyes, the realization that she'd finally lost control. If you turn this in, she said quietly, we'll lose everything. I looked her dead in the eye. Maybe it's time you learn what it feels like to start over. The words hung in the air, heavy, final. She stared at me, breathing hard, then slowly sank into a chair like a balloon losing air. For the first time, she looked small. Not weak, exactly, but human. The rain softened outside, as if even the storm decided it had seen enough. Clara broke the silence, her voice barely above a whisper. What happens now? Now, I said, glancing at the folder of evidence on the table. Now I finish what your mom started when she told you to change the locks. I'm changing them again, but this time, metaphorically. You'd really do this? She asked, eyes wide. Turn her in. Clara, I said. If I don't, I'm the one who goes down for it. You think the IRS is going to believe my mother-in-law did it as a legal defense? I'll be the first man to go to prison for being too trusting at dinner. Margaret whispered something then, so softly I almost missed it. He's right. Clara turned to her, shocked. What? He's right, Margaret repeated, her voice trembling. I pushed too far. She looked down, her hands clutching the napkin like it could save her. It was supposed to be temporary, just until the audit passed. Then I'd fix it. You mean hide it? I said. She didn't argue. That silence was louder than any confession. Clara sat back, covering her mouth, tears rolling freely now. Mom, she whispered. How could you? Margaret shook her head, but she didn't answer. Maybe she finally realized there was no version of this story where she came out clean. I wanted to feel triumphant, but instead I just felt hollow. It's weird. Revenge always sounds satisfying until you're staring at the wreckage, realizing the person you beat was already broken long before you swung. Still, part of me couldn't ignore the justice of it all. For years, I'd been the quiet, agreeable husband, the one who smiled through condescension and paid the bills while her family mocked me. Now, they were the punchline. I didn't need to shout or gloat. The truth was doing the work for me. Margaret finally looked up. If you turn me in, she said, you destroy Clara too. The press won't care who signed what. They'll drag the whole family. I sighed. You should have thought of that before you turned me into your personal money mule. I walked to the window, staring out at the rain-streaked city. You know, I used to envy people with big families, I said. Now I realize the best gift I ever gave myself was distance. Behind me, I heard the faintest sound, Margaret crying. Not dramatically, not like she practiced in mirrors. Just soft, broken sobs that sounded foreign coming from her. Clara reached out, hesitated, then pulled her hand back. She looked at me helplessly, like she wanted me to fix something that had been broken long before I entered their world. I don't know what to do, she whispered. You don't have to, I said, turning back to them. The law will. Margaret wiped her eyes, regaining some of her usual steel. You're enjoying this, she accused. No, I said. I'm surviving it. She scoffed, but her voice was weaker now. You think they'll thank you? You think anyone cares that you were the victim? No, I said, grabbing my coat. But I'll sleep better knowing I stopped you from dragging me down with you. As I headed for the door, Clara's voice followed me. Where are you going? To finish the story, I said. You and your mom have been the authors long enough. I paused at the doorway, looked back at both of them. Clara pale and shaking, Margaret hunched and quiet, and felt something I didn't expect. Not hate, not even pity, just closure. You two take care, I said softly. You'll need each other more than ever now. I stepped outside, the rain washing over me like punctuation. Behind me, I could still hear Margaret's voice, faint and bitter, saying something to Clara I couldn't make out. But it didn't matter. The cracks in their story had become craters, and this time, I wasn't the one falling through. The next morning started the way all great revenge days do. With coffee, adrenaline, and the sweet sound of my phone buzzing like karma finally clocked in for work. Officer Ray met me in the lobby of the Financial Crimes Division, holding a folder so thick it could have doubled as a Bible for the morally bankrupt. You really doing this? He asked, leading me past rows of cubicles where exhausted detectives looked like caffeine-powered ghosts. I'm a married man who got his locks changed as a birthday gift, I said. I've got nothing left to lose. He smirked, probably against department policy. I handed him the envelope with all my evidence, deeds, forged signatures, wire transfers, even screenshots of Margaret's maintenance work, payments to Patrick Hale. Watching him flip through those papers was like watching a demolition expert admire his blueprint before pressing the detonator. This is solid, he said. Once this hits the system, they'll be under full investigation. I nodded, pretending to be calm, but inside, my heart was doing a full drum solo. Good, I said. Maybe now I can celebrate my birthday without background crime. While he filed the report, I wandered through the office, glancing at whiteboards covered in names and arrows, conspiracy webs that made my in-laws look like amateurs. One detective was interrogating a guy in a Hawaiian shirt about crypto fraud, and all I could think was, at least he's dressed for it. When Ray returned, he handed me a copy of my statement. You're officially off the hook, he said. But I should warn you, once this gets out, it's going to get messy. Messy, I repeated. Ray, my life's been a Jackson Pollock painting since the day I met Clara. He didn't argue. We'll contact you if we need testimony, he said. I signed where he pointed, thanked him, and walked out feeling something I hadn't in weeks. Clarity. That dangerous kind of clarity that makes you realize you've been too quiet for too long. I stopped at a diner down the street, the kind of place that still calls everyone Han and serves coffee strong enough to erase your last 3 mistakes. I sat at the counter, ordered pancakes, and started drafting an email on my phone. Not to Margaret. Oh no, she didn't deserve direct access anymore, but to the board members of Whitmore Estates, her company. I attached the documents and wrote, "To whom it may concern, I suggest you review these transactions before the IRS does. Regards, Andrew Bennett, apparently your CFO." I hit send before I could talk myself out of it, then poured syrup over my pancakes like I was christening a new era. Halfway through breakfast, my phone buzzed again. Clara. For a moment, I almost ignored it, but curiosity is a disease I refuse to cure. "Drew," she said, voice trembling. "The police came to the house. They're questioning Mom." "Good," I said. "Maybe they'll finally ask her why she thinks ethics is a hobby." "You don't understand," she said, crying. "They froze our accounts. Dad's losing his mind." I leaned back in the booth, watching the rain streak down the diner window. "I understand perfectly. Welcome to consequences." "You did this," she said bitterly. "You betrayed us." "You betrayed me first," I said calmly. "You can't cry loyalty after signing your husband's name onto a felony." "We were just trying to protect what's ours," she snapped. "Correction," I said. "You were trying to protect what was mine, my name, my credit, my sanity. You gambled with them, and you lost." She went quiet, the kind of silence that doesn't ask for forgiveness but hopes you'll offer it anyway. "What are you going to do now?" she whispered. I smiled faintly. "Eat my pancakes," I said, then hung up. By the time I left the diner, news trucks were already parked outside Whitmore Estates. The headlines hadn't even dropped yet, but the smell of scandal was in the air, and nothing attracts journalists like rich people caught doing poor people crimes. I watched one reporter practicing her live stand-up, saying something about alleged fraud and family entanglements, and I thought, damn, they work fast. I got in my car and drove to pick up my nephew Jamie from school, because after a morning of corporate betrayal, a 6-year-old with sticky hands and dinosaur facts was exactly the therapy I needed. "Uncle Drew," he shouted, running up with his backpack bouncing. "Mom said you were on the news." "Yep," I said, buckling him in. "But only the good kind this time." He grinned. "Did you win?" I paused for a second, then smiled. "Let's just say the bad guys are finally doing their own paperwork." We drove past the Whitmore Estate mansion, which now had police cruisers parked out front like unwanted party guests. For the first time in years, that house looked small, powerless. Margaret's empire, built on lies, manipulation, and other people's patience, was finally collapsing, and I didn't feel sorry for her. She'd spent years preaching about legacy, yet here she was, leaving behind nothing but cautionary tales and audit trails. Later that night, I got a call from Officer Ray again. "Just wanted to let you know," he said, "the investigation's officially opened. They're freezing all Whitmore accounts and subpoenaing records." "So she's toast?" I asked. "More like medium well," he said. "They're still digging." "Perfect," I said. "Let them dig. Maybe they'll find her conscience buried under the pool." "You sound calm," he noted. "When you've lived under Margaret's roof, every day is emotional boot camp," I replied. This is vacation." After the call, I poured myself a drink, turned on the TV, and flipped through the channels until I landed on the evening news. And there it was, a live segment from outside Whitmore Estates, complete with drone footage and dramatic music. The anchor said, "Prominent couple under investigation for fraud and tax evasion. Family involvement suspected." The camera panned to Margaret and Harold being escorted by officers into their home. Harold looked like someone had unplugged his will to live, and Margaret, well, even under stress, she somehow managed to look like she was giving a press conference. Clara wasn't in sight, probably hiding behind whatever publicist she could find. I raised my glass toward the TV. "To justice," I said aloud. "May it be as dramatic as my marriage." Then I turned off the sound and just watched their faces as the captions rolled across the screen. For the first time in forever, The chaos didn't belong to me. It belonged to them. I wasn't the victim, or the fool, or the punchline anymore. I was the witness. And damn, the view was good. A month later, I woke up to the sound of Poetic Justice crackling through my phone. The news alert read, "Prominent couple under investigation for fraud and tax evasion. Family involvement suspected." And there it was, a photo of Margaret and Harold, looking like two rejected extras from a courtroom drama. Harold's face was twisted into his signature, "Why me?" grimace, while Margaret wore that tight, rehearsed smile that probably fooled the neighbors, but not the IRS. The headline might as well have said, "Karma finally got a parking permit." I sat there in bed, sipping coffee and scrolling through the article like it was my morning devotion. Every line was a highlight reel of revenge. The couple allegedly used falsified property deeds and offshore accounts registered under family members' names. Oh, so now I'm a family member? I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. The same people who once told me I wouldn't understand wealth management were now being managed by federal agents with clipboards. Poetic. Beautiful. Worth every sleepless night. Clara tried calling me that evening. And the next. And the one after that. 32 calls in total, because apparently, Karma also comes with unlimited minutes. I ignored all of them until my phone nearly caught fire from notifications. Finally, I texted back once. "Don't worry, I didn't change the locks. You can visit your conscience anytime." No response. Not even a typing bubble. That's when I knew she'd seen it, and that was enough. I wasn't interested in closure or explanations. I'd already learned that some people don't say sorry. They just get exposed. A few days later, I ran into Officer Ray at a coffee shop downtown. He was off duty, wearing jeans and a sweatshirt that made him look almost human. "You've been cleared," he said, sipping his drink. "You're officially the sane one in this family." "Wow," I said. "That's the first time anyone's ever said that. Can I get it in writing?" He laughed, which was weird because I didn't think the man was capable of humor. "You'd be surprised how many cases like this I see," he said. "Families eating each other alive over money." "Yeah, well," I said, "mine just invited the whole country to watch." He nodded thoughtfully. "You handled it better than most." I shrugged. "Oh, you mean I didn't light something on fire or go on talk shows? That's just called being broke and tired." He grinned. "Whatever you did, it worked. The DA's building a strong case. They'll probably go down for a while." "Good," I said. I was running out of ways to block their numbers anyway. After he left, I walked back to my apartment, my real home, no longer half a crime scene. And for the first time in months, it actually felt peaceful. No lies humming through the walls, no police tape fluttering like guilt confetti. Just quiet. Honest quiet. I sat on my couch, the same one Patrick the handyman criminal had flipped during his little break-in adventure, and stared at the photo I'd finally flipped upright again. Me and Clara on our wedding day. I didn't feel anger anymore. Just recognition. That photo was a museum piece now, a reminder of the guy I used to be. Patient, naive, trying too hard to please everyone who secretly rooted for my failure. I poured a drink and raised it toward the picture. "You tried," I said to my past self. "You really did." The next morning, my name popped up again in the news, but this time, not in the suspect section. The article headline read, "Anonymous source provides key evidence in Whitmore case." Anonymous, huh? Yeah, sure. The anonymous guy who once couldn't pick a restaurant without a family vote had single-handedly started a financial earthquake. The comments section was chaos. Some people defending the poor socialites, others calling it poetic justice, one guy saying, "That's what happens when you marry your accountant." I bookmarked that one. I even got a call from an unknown number later that day. Turned out to be a journalist from Channel 9 asking if I wanted to give an exclusive interview. "We'd love to hear your side," she said. "You seem to be the only innocent one." "No thanks," I said. My silence is under contract with satisfaction. Meanwhile, the internet was doing what it does best, digging. Old photos of Margaret at charity galas, interviews where she bragged about financial integrity, videos of Harold preaching about family values. Every clip aged worse than gas station sushi. And somewhere in that digital wildfire, people started calling me the guy who brought down his in-laws. Someone even made a meme of me holding a fake eviction notice that said karma served hot. I won't lie, I laughed. Then, like clockwork, the sympathy texts rolled in. People who hadn't spoken to me in years suddenly felt terrible for how I'd been treated. My coworker Tom sent, "Man, I always knew something was off about her mom." "Oh, thanks, Tom. Really useful observation. 3 years late." Even Jared texted, "Bro, when they make the movie about this, who do you want playing you?" "Ryan Reynolds," I replied. But broke. That weekend, I went grocery shopping and actually enjoyed it. No stress, no hiding. Just me, my cart, and the satisfaction of knowing my ex-family was somewhere explaining wire transfers to people in suits. The cashier, a kid who couldn't have been older than 20, looked at me and said, "Hey, aren't you the guy whose mother-in-law got arrested?" I blinked. Wow, news really travels. He grinned. "Dude, you're like a local legend." "A legend," I repeated, laughing. "For what? Surviving Thanksgiving dinners." "Nah," he said. "For not losing your mind." I thought about that as I left the store. Maybe that was my real win. Not revenge, not headlines, just sanity. That night, I cleaned up my apartment, cooked myself dinner that didn't involve takeout containers, and played some old vinyl I'd forgotten I owned. The city lights glowed outside, steady and forgiving. It hit me that for the first time in years, I didn't have to brace for chaos. No fake smiles at dinner. No phone calls that start with, "We need to talk." No family trying to pull strings like I was their marionette. Just peace, and maybe a little bit of pride. I grabbed my journal, the one I used to write half-hearted gratitude lists in, and scribbled a single line. Sometimes karma just needs a little paperwork. Then I poured another drink, opened my window, and let the cool night air in. Somewhere downtown, I could still hear faint sirens, and for once, I smiled. They weren't for me. The morning after the news broke felt different, like the universe had finally stopped sitting on my chest. For the first time in months, I didn't wake up to chaos, suspicion, or a lawyer's number flashing on my phone. Instead, I woke up to sunlight cutting across the living room, a mug of coffee that actually tasted like coffee, and the kind of peace that felt suspiciously foreign. I sat at my kitchen table, the same spot where I'd once confronted Margaret with her folder of financial sins, and stared at the final envelope lying in front of me. It was addressed to the district attorney's office, stamped, sealed, and ready for delivery. Inside were the last pieces of the puzzle: offshore account details, digital records from Margaret's computer, and one particularly juicy email where she called the IRS a minor inconvenience. That one deserved an award. I took a deep breath, slipped the envelope into my messenger bag, and whispered, "Happy belated birthday" to me. It felt poetic. Like a man signing off from the worst chapter of his life with postage and a grin. As I walked to the mailbox down the street, everything looked sharper, lighter. The same street where I once trudged home wondering if my wife was lying to me now felt like neutral territory again. The barista from the cafe next door waved. "Rough month, huh?" she called. I laughed. "You could say that." "Saw your story on the news," she said. "You're kind of a local hero." I grinned. "Don't tell my in-laws. They prefer the villain narrative." She snorted and handed me a free donut. For surviving whatever that was. I took it and saluted her with the pastry. "Appreciate it. I'll dedicate this sugar high to justice." Then I walked the last few steps to the mailbox, slid the envelope in, and listened to it drop with a soft thunk. Just like that, it was out of my hands, literally and metaphorically. No speeches. No dramatic background music. Just paperwork sealing the end of an era. On the walk back, I passed a newspaper stand. The headline practically winked at me. "Whitmore family faces criminal charges amid financial scandal." There was a picture of Margaret and Harold in the back of a black SUV, surrounded by flashing cameras. Margaret still looked composed, because of course she did, probably rehearsed her mugshot in the mirror. I could almost hear her voice. "Always look your best, even during a felony." I bought a copy just to frame it. A souvenir from the day karma clocked in overtime. Back home, I made pancakes, because revenge is great, but breakfast is sacred, and blasted music from my old college playlist. Something about flipping pancakes while your ex-in-laws face indictments just hits different. Halfway through my second cup of coffee, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from an unknown number. "You think this is over?" I sighed. Only one person on Earth texted like a comic book villain. I typed back, "Yes, Margaret, and you're out of data." Then I blocked her number and laughed so hard I nearly dropped my plate. It was amazing how light life felt once you stopped letting people rent space in your head without paying emotional rent. I spent the rest of the day clearing out my apartment, tossing out old things that reminded me of them. The decorative vase Clara's mother gave us, a family heirloom, which turned out to be from a clearance bin. The expensive picture frame she'd gifted at Christmas, even the monogram towels embroidered with C and A, because nothing says happy marriage like matching cotton reminders of failure. Every box I sealed felt like closing another wound. Later that evening, I got a call from Officer Ray. "The DA's office received your final package," he said. "You've officially done your civic duty." "You mean my petty duty," I said. "Let's call it a tie." He chuckled. "The Whitmores are lawyering up. Looks like this one's going to trial." "Perfect," I said. "Let them explain themselves under oath for once." "You don't want to testify?" he asked. "Oh, I'll testify," I said. "I might even wear my birthday shirt. The one I was wearing the night they tried to kick me out of my own life." "You're handling this pretty well," he said. "Honestly, I'm impressed." "I had good training," I said. "Try surviving Sunday dinners with Margaret for 10 years. That's basically FBI conditioning." After we hung up, I stepped out onto my balcony, the city buzzing below like it hadn't even noticed my personal drama. I looked up at the skyline and let the cold air fill my lungs. I realized something funny then. Closure doesn't come from getting even. It comes from no longer needing to. I didn't need to see Margaret humiliated or Harold explaining himself in handcuffs. I didn't need Clara's apology. The truth was enough. The world knew who they really were now, and I finally knew who I was without them. That was victory enough. A few days later, Jared came over with takeout and his usual commentary. "So," he said, opening a beer, "you're basically Batman now." "Batman doesn't file tax fraud reports," I said. "He would if his in-laws owned Gotham," Jared replied. "You're like Revenge with paperwork." I laughed. "I'll take it. Sounds like a job with benefits." We ate, watched the evening news, and when Margaret's face popped up again, this time paired with the words indicted and arraignment, we clinked our bottles. "To survival," he said. "To pancakes and subpoenas," I replied. That night, after he left, I sat on the couch and stared out the window again. The world outside kept spinning, cars honking, people laughing, streetlights flickering, but everything inside me was still for once. I thought about Clara, wherever she was now. Maybe she was angry or ashamed or still clinging to her mother's ghost stories about how this was all my fault. But none of that mattered anymore. I'd done what she couldn't. I'd cut the strings. The locks had been changed for good this time, and I didn't even need a key. Before bed, I found the last remaining reminder of that old life. A photo of me, Clara, and her parents at some charity gala, all fake smiles and champagne dreams. I looked at it for a long second, then slid it into a drawer. Not burned, not torn, just put away. Because some stories don't need dramatic endings. They just need to stop taking up space. I turned off the lights, crawled into bed, and for the first time in years, slept without wondering what I'd wake up to lose. The next morning, I made coffee, checked the mailbox out of habit, and smiled at the sight of it empty. No drama, no disasters, just bills, junk mail, and the quiet satisfaction of peace earned the hard way. I poured another cup, sat at the table, and muttered to myself, "Guess that's that." Somewhere out there, Margaret was probably plotting her next move. Harold was Googling minimum sentence for financial fraud, and Clara was realizing she'd married a man who refused to stay broken. As for me, I had pancakes, coffee, and an unlocked door that, for once, didn't feel like a liability. So yeah, revenge was nice, but breakfast was better.